Now from Jason, who is in Bristol for us. And Jason, just tell us more about the extent of the problem where you are.
Yeah, where we are, Jane, the drug problem, particularly cocaine, has increased. It's gone up fourfold according to these sewage tests in as many years. And I'm here with Steve Rolls from the drug policy think tank Transform. Steve, we particularly notice actually the London market plateauing out and per head of population, Bristol overtaking it. What's going on?
Well, the nature of the cocaine market has changed quite dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. We've seen cocaine purity has increased from 10 or 20% often in the kind of cocaine that you'd buy on the streets to sometimes 70 or 80%. So from a user perspective, the actual product is much more attractive, not least because the price has stayed similar. So it's actually got cheaper and, from a user perspective, better. So that could be part of the reason.
And with that purity, I mean, I guess that's what's partly showing up in these sewage tests, is that because they're taking purer cocaine, actually it comes up in higher quantities in these tests. Does that have health implications?
Yes, it does. I mean, cocaine it's a risky drug, and the more that you consume, obviously, the greater those risks will be. And if you're using a purer drug, that will tend to lead to higher exposure to those risks. Although some of the cutting agents that may actually be diminishing may also be dangerous. So there's a swings and roundabouts thing here.
So there's a clear health risk. It's a problem. What do we do? You've obviously thought a lot about the policy around this. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if the purity of cocaine and the availability of cocaine and the use of cocaine is rising, I think it makes it very clear that the enforcement approach that we currently have isn't working. I mean, it would seem to be doing pretty much the exact opposite of what it's supposed to be doing, which is to reduce availability and to reduce use. The opposite of that is happening. We are long overdue a rethink, and I think our view is that we need to accept the reality of cocaine use to some degree and manage it as a public health issue to try and reduce the harms that it causes both to the people who use it and to the wider community.
By doing what, though?
Well, firstly, we need to end the criminalisation of people who use cocaine. Secondly, we need to redirect resources from failed enforcement approaches into public health interventions that we know work, things like prevention and treatment and harm reduction. And in the longer term, we need to have an adult discussion about regulating the market, because that market's there whether we like it or not, and we have a choice between leaving it in the hands of organised crime and street dealers or responsible regulation by the government.
We've already heard people in our piece talk about it's socially acceptable in some areas, cocaine, certainly more than heroin. If you legalise it, don't you just make it more socially acceptable?
Well, I mean, the fact that use is going up under a system of prohibition where you can literally be sent to prison for being in possession of cocaine. You get life imprisonment for sharing it with a friend. I mean, in theory, anyway, that's on the books. Shows that as a deterrent effect, criminalisation isn't working. Yeah. If we want to encourage people to make responsible health decisions, we need to educate them about risk. And the criminal justice system is not there for that purpose, and it hasn't worked historically. So we need to really rethink and reorientate our policy towards health and away from punishment.
Just finally, quickly, some say, alcohol's the worst affecting drug in society. Would you be making it a little bit more like that if you decriminalise cocaine?
Well, I think we need to not if you had legal cocaine, you wouldn't commercialise it. I mean, we wouldn't have cocaine Premiership football or cocaine sponsoring, youth events. It would have to be something very strictly regulated, unbranded, no advertising, available on a sort of ration basis from pharmacies or something like that. We'd have to have a regulatory framework that was appropriate to the level of risk. So no, it would be very different from legal alcohol, which is a very dangerous drug, actively promoted. We don't want that at all.
Steve Rolls from Transform, thank you very much for talking to us from Bristol. Back to you in the studio, Jane.
Thanks, Jason.
We were showing you those